Normally, we would be able to go out, meet up with friends to relieve some stress, or maybe you have a gym membership or yoga and you go out and do that, go out to dinner. So all of these things have been taken away from us, and now we're just quarantined to our homes. Even our jobs look different. For me, I am always on the go. I'm always networking, meeting with people, doing these workshops live. So it's been a really big adjustment for me. Most of you that are on are all business either owners or you work for somebody, and that's drastically changed for you also. So whether you love your job or not, there's always going to be stress in our work and when we're trying to combine work and life balance. So whenever we stress and we don't learn how to manage it, it ends up harming us physically and emotionally. A lot of people will ask me, how did I get into this? Or how did I become a EFT practitioner? Over a decade ago, my husband was in the hospital and he was unable to speak. They thought he was having a stroke, so they ran several tests and everything kept coming back normal. They were saying he's fine, but obviously he's laying in a bed, not being able to talk. So within 24 hours, he would come out of it, and he just said it was absolutely frightening. He could understand everything we were saying, but he could not remember how to form a word, how to put words together. So he was perfectly coherent, could do anything we asked him, but he could not speak. So during this time, they did find a node on his thyroid, which they said would not be any part of this not being able to speak. They just weren't sure what was going on. So after another day, they sent us home because his vitals were normal. We had no answers, and I started getting online and Google, right? When you don't have an answer to something, you just Google it. So I thought, I'm going to see if I could find anything similar to what happened to my husband. During this time, he did get that node on his thyroid checked. It did end up being cancer. So we thought, okay, maybe this had something to do with it. He went in and actually got his thyroid removed. And soon after that, he was back in the hospital again, unable to speak. So we went through the same process, running tests, doctors scrambling, trying to figure out what's going on. And within 24 hours, he'd start talking again. So at the end of this stay, they basically were telling me that it was something emotional or some form of psychosis, and wanted me to bring him into our mental health facility here, which would be Pine Rest. But that just didn't add up for me. It didn't set well. I thought there was something else going on. So we left the hospital against their recommendations. And during this time, I had been Googling, like I said, trying to find some answers. And I found a doctor out of Detroit who had been in a traditional medical practice for over 25 years. And he kind of changed most of his practice to holistic healing. He ended up finding really strange problems and figuring medical things out that other doctors couldn't for people. So I reached out, and he was over 8 months out of being able to get into him, but he agreed to do blood work on my husband, which had already been done several times, but he said he looks at the numbers differently. And within 2 days, he called us and said, I found the problem. He is completely, his body is taken over by yeast. So you hear people that have gluten intolerance. He could not have yeast in his diet. We did not know this. We ignored the signs as it went along, and it was attacking his organs, his brain. And with the thyroid not working correctly, because that works almost every organ in our body also, it was like a perfect storm. And that's why he wasn't able to speak. And after working with this doctor for a while, he told us that, look, most medical issues are based on emotional issues and stress. That's what triggers all of these. Even food intolerances can be triggered by this. So he started giving us holistic ways to deal with things. My husband did have to change his diet. He introduced us to acupuncture. And then at that time, he also introduced us to EFT. That's why I call it acupuncture without the needles, because I'm going to show you how you use just your fingertips and tap on acupuncture points on your face and upper body to relieve any stress or anxiety. So that's how I got here. It was because my husband was not handling his stress well, and it ended up into these big physical problems. And that's what happens. People don't realize how harmful stress can be to our emotional health and our physical health. And now really stress has become like a badge of honor for us. It's just everyone says they're stressed out. You're not normal if you don't have 20 things on your plate and you're running here and there and trying to balance work and a family. And on top of that, we have technology, which is amped up, which has been wonderful for many of us in a lot of ways with our business. But the problem is that we're on 24/7. So at any time you can grab your phone, you can check a text, an email, answer a call. So even when you leave work, you really haven't left work because you are technically always on. I always joke with people about the old days. Now I know there's probably all different ages on the call, but for people my age or older will remember that we used to have phones attached to our walls with actual cords. We couldn't walk around with them. You had a 10 or 15-foot distance to go, depending on the length of your cord. And we had typewriters. We didn't have computers. So back then, if you left your job and came home, you were usually done with your job, unless it entailed some paperwork or something. But we don't have that luxury anymore. We almost feel like we have to stay on top of things and be always checking these things, which is another thing that's causing a lot of stress. So my job today is to help you understand how stress shows up in your body, be more aware of your stress triggers, and then teach you simple tools that you can use through your daily life to manage the stress and anxiety. And if you use the tools, it's definitely going to bring a calmness. It will give you clarity and focus. It's going to help with your performance. And things that normally would have really stressed you out, you will be able to manage so much easier. So I just want to give you a few statistics from the American Institute of Stress. Over 83% of US workers say they're stressed on a daily basis. US businesses spend over $300 billion a year on stress-related incidences. Stress increases heart disease by 40%, heart attack by 25%, and strokes by 50%. And this was shocking too to a lot of people. 80 to 90% of all doctor visits are stress related. And that's because stress has such a huge impact on our digestive issues, heart, high blood pressure, sleep issues, insomnia, headaches, migraines. All of these things are triggered in our body because of stress. So oftentimes, many of us will use things to kind of alleviate or to ignore it or forget about it, and we'll do unhealthy things. Maybe it will be drinking alcohol or smoking, overeating, drugs, and these things are just going to add to your physical and emotional issues. So today I'm going to show you simple tools you can use so you can make healthy choices to manage the stress that shows up in your life. So what happens when we stress? We have this part of our brain, it's called the amygdala, and it's almost like a 911 system in our brain. So whenever you stress, this alarm is going off, and immediately your body is flooded with the stress hormones, cortisol being one of them. Once your body gets flooded with stress hormones, those body things start happening, like your stomach may have knots in it, your heart rate increases, your breathing may become shallow, you may be shaky or sweaty. All of us know when we're starting to stress out. If I would be talking to you live now, I'd ask the crowd, and most people would be able to respond. They might say they feel it in their shoulders and neck, or their stomach, their chest area. So we all have those signals. We all know when stress is amping up in our bodies. So once that happens, the one thing that people aren't really aware of is the blood is literally leaving our forebrain. So the blood has left our brain and it's going to our arms and our legs. It's in that fight flight mode because it thinks we're in danger. It thinks we have to run or we have to fight. And the problem is our brains have not evolved enough to realize that just being stuck in traffic, an argument with a boss or significant other, trying to meet a deadline, those stressors are not life-threatening. But our brain cannot tell the difference. It can't differentiate that. Whenever we start really stressing out and we start flooding our body with those stress hormones, instinctively our body is trying to survive. It thinks there is a threat and it wants to run or hide. And we are not under any threat with those things. So that's where we have to, it's our job to realize how to manage that and to pay attention. And that's the one thing many of us do. We get so used to that headache or the tension in our neck and shoulders. We just say, oh, that's normal. That's what happens when I stress out. But the more you ignore that and the more it keeps happening, it's building up. And as we get older, that will definitely show up as physical disease. You will get a lot more colds or flus, have a lot more anxiety because you're not managing it and your body is constantly trying to warn you. It's almost like in your car, you get that mechanic light or the engine light comes on. And if you just keep ignoring it, eventually something's going to happen where your car just doesn't work. Or the gas light comes on and you just don't get gas. Eventually you're going to run out of gas. That's your car giving you the signals. Our body signal is those signs, the headaches, the tension, the stomach issues. That's your sign or signal to do something about it. So unfortunately, because our brains are wired for survival, we could have 10 experiences during the day. Maybe 5 are neutral, 4 are positive, 1 is negative. Our brains will focus on that negative. You will go to bed that night, and even though you had 4 positive and 5 that were neutral, you will concentrate on that one negative thought. What happened, what you could have done different, how you're going to fix it. It's just how our brains are wired. It's there as a safety mechanism. And like I said, our brains haven't evolved. Our ancestors just had to worry about a saber-toothed tiger coming in the cave and they either fight it or run. We have all of these things and stressors and the technology, all of this stuff that shows up on a daily basis. So our body is constantly in that fight flight mode. And that's where these tools will help you to focus more, to think clearly, to not be so reactive. So I first always introduce people to breathing, and people are thinking, well, I breathe every day. Well, 90% of the time, I'm even at fault with it. We're breathing from our upper chest area. We never really breathe down into our diaphragm or really fill our lungs up. So I always start by telling people to put a hand on your chest and one on your stomach and to take a breath, a normal breath that you would take, and see which hand moves. Now, a lot of times people will say just their upper hand. So if you really think about it and to take that breath, try to get your hand to expand, almost like you have a balloon in your stomach. So you take that breath in and your hand should expand out. Your whole belly should rise up. And for many people, it will actually be difficult for them to get the air down there. And I will tell them to lay on the floor when they have time and put like a book on your stomach and start breathing and try to get that book to rise and fall, because that is actually a proper breath. If you just took 3 breaths like that and made your belly expand when you were feeling anxious or stressed, that would send a signal to your brain that you're calm and that you can relax. And that would reduce the stress response just simply by breathing. So I have another breathing technique that I always share, and this one has worked great, especially for people who have issues with sleeping at night or they are constant worriers. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. And what you're going to do is you're first going to let all of the air out of your lungs. Then you're going to take a slow breath through your nose for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and then blow out your mouth like you're blowing out a candle for 8 seconds. And it's a cycle that you would repeat 4 times. Now, again, this is really awkward and different for me because I can't see any of you if you're doing it or doing it correctly, or if you have questions on it. So just try that once. First, let all of the air out of your lungs. So just let everything out. And you're going to breathe in slow through your nose for 4 seconds and hold for 7. And then, like you're blowing out a candle, to 8. So one more time, we'll try it without me talking you through it. So air out. Now, just that simple technique, if you were laying in bed, a lot of my clients will use that if they're sleeping, they wake up and they can't fall back asleep. Following that pattern, just doing that 4 times, you don't want to do it more than 4 at a time. And for some of you right now, it might be hard to just do it in that sequence, holding your breath for 7 seconds, letting it out for 8. If you have to change that to a shorter, where you're just taking 2 breaths, holding it for 4 and letting out for 5, you just want the exhale to be the longest in your count. That puts your that fight, flight, freeze on hold and kind of sends those signals to your brain that you're safe and you're okay. So that's one way you can use the breathing. And again, you could just do the simple breathing like I showed you before, where you're breathing in your nose and filling your belly up with air like a balloon. And doing that 3 times can help reduce that stress. So another one that I always show is called the triple warmer. It's called the triple warmer because we have an energy system that runs through our body. Now, most of the time when I present and when I get to talking about tapping or EFT, I'll say meridian system. So many of you may not have ever heard of the meridian system. Some people don't believe that the meridian system exists. It's basically, picture it like a superhighway of roads that run through your body. And just like our veins are carrying blood to every organ, our meridian system, our energy system, is carrying energy to every part of our body. The meridian points are used in acupuncture, which has been around for over 5,000 years. There's been many studies around this, and actually a few years back, Seoul University did a study for the traditional doctors trying to prove or disprove the meridian system. And they took dye, picked an acupuncture point, injected the dye, and looked on a CAT scan, and they could actually follow the dye and see that it followed a path. And then they took the dye and injected in a non-acupuncture point, just a random point on the body, and seen that it just dispersed. So it has been now proven that this energy system is running through our body. Traditional medicine calls it the premovascular system. But for this purpose, I'm going to keep using the meridian system, just our energy system. And the triple warmer is one of the meridians that runs through our body. And it's the main meridian that is triggered whenever we are stressed or overwhelmed. So we want to figure out, how do we turn that off? So like I told you, these energy pathways run like a highway. They have different paths they run in the body. And we're going to follow the triple warmer path with our fingers to turn off the stress response. So this is how you're going to do this exercise. You're going to start by putting your fingers on your temples. So your fingers will go on your temples. You're going to take a nice breath in. So take a breath in. Let that breath out. And then your next breath in, we're going to trace up and over our ears and down our neck, keeping our fingers in contact with our skin. So it'll look like this. Over our ears, down our neck, to our shoulders. When we get to our shoulders, our fingers are going to go in a claw position like this, and they're going to hang on our shoulders. You're going to take another breath in. And when you let that breath out, you're going to slowly rake those down over your collarbones and shake it out. Now, let's do it again through the whole thing. Take a breath, hold your fingers on your temples. Another breath up and over the ears, down the neck. Let that breath out. Fingers are like claws. Our shoulders, take another breath in. And drag those down and shake that off. So you should have felt, there's almost a lot of people feel like just an immediate calmness come over their body, because like I said, you're tracing that triple warmer meridian that is activated whenever you stress out. So it's just that simple. You could be sitting at your desk and do that exercise a couple times, and that will bring you back into the present moment and into a calmer state. And then another exercise that I like to share is called the thymus thump. We have a thymus gland that sits here right below our breastbone. And our thymus is what produces the white blood cells. So it goes in and kills off any of those invaders or cells that may be causing disease or infection, inflammation. It's creating those white cells to keep your immune system up and boosted. A lot of times when I work with kids, I'll call it the Tarzan point. You'll see Tarzan do this, or in the jungle, you'll see that apes or monkeys will do this. And it's usually before they're going into battle or they're staking their ground, because not only tapping this point, you just sit and tap like this, you're not only boosting your energy system, but you can boost your energy overall. So if you're working on a project and you're just feeling like you can't give it anymore, you feel stuck, you have no more left, if you tap your thymus gland for a few, that can boost your energy. And while you're doing it, you're also boosting your immune system, which is a great one to use right now. I'll just go through the house while I'm walking and tap that periodically. With all of this COVID and stuff going on, the best thing we can do, obviously, is to keep our immune system up and running at its best. So I know right now I've thrown a lot at you. I'm not sure, Alex, have you gotten any questions or thoughts so far?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Okay, so I will keep going. So another way to figure out how to control your stress, which a lot of people, when I say write down or journal each day, they're like, oh, journaling, I hate journaling. The only way you're going to find the patterns to your stress is to log them. You don't have to call it journaling if you want. Just keep a notebook for a couple weeks and write down whenever you're stressed. Where were you? Who was there? What was your reaction? How did you feel about it? And just keep track of that. And you will be surprised when people actually sit and do this. They will see that there is a particular pattern. It might be a particular individual, a certain place, and maybe you just know right offhand. But to narrow it down, whenever you're feeling anxious, stressed, angry, overwhelmed with anything, stop and think about what's going on. And if you could take a few minutes to jot those things down, it will be a big revelation for you moving forward to pay attention to what those patterns are. Once you know the pattern and what it is, then you can begin to change those. If it's something you could physically change, that's great. But if not, you'll learn to use some of the tools that I'm showing you to manage the stress. If you know you're going to be going into that stressful situation, you can get a handle on it before you even walk into it. It's kind of like if your morning starts off really rushed and you're running around and you can't find your keys, you're already late, the kids miss the bus and you have to get them to school, and then you're stuck in traffic. And it's just one thing after another keeps going wrong. And the more these things build up, it's amping up your stress and that anxiety level. So by the time you get to work or are ready to work with clients or coworkers, you are not in the most clear and focused space to do that. That's why if you pay attention to these simple tools and you know you're getting worked up and you stop and did those breaths or did that, the triple warmer or the tapping that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, it will immediately get your brain back on board. That blood will go back to your forebrain and you will be able to react and think so much more clearly. So, okay, now we're going to talk about emotional freedom technique. So, like I told you earlier, the easiest way to describe it is acupuncture without the needles. It's been around since the 80s. The man who actually came up with the theory of it was a psychologist. His name was Roger Callahan, and he began to use it with his patients where he was basically doing talk therapy with them, but he added in them using their fingertips and tapping onto points on their face and upper body, and realized how quickly the stressor or whatever was causing them anxiety would leave their entire body within something they'd worked on for weeks. He could get them to clear it within minutes or within an hour. And then Gary Craig came along in the 90s, and he kind of simplified the procedure. So it looks very strange. When I first learned it, me and my husband, I thought it was a joke. I didn't think it was real. I thought, how can you tap on points on your body and change a belief or relieve stress? It just made no sense to me. It seemed too simple. And that's what a lot of people will say when I show it to them. They're like, it seems too simple. It can't work. And I just tell them, you have nothing to lose. There's no side effects. There's no medication involved. You just have to try it. There's now been, when I started it over a decade ago, there was not a lot of research done on it. So people really did think I was out of my mind. My daughters would used to say, whenever my friends come over, don't tap, don't show them that thing. It's too weird. And I got a lot of pushback. Grand Rapids is very conservative. So many of my talks that I did around EFT, I didn't even mention it at first. I kind of led up to it like I did with you. We'd talk about stress and then I would introduce it. But now there's over 100 research studies, review articles, meta-analysis. They've all been printed in peer-reviewed journals. You could look it up online and you will find emotional freedom technique everywhere. Tons of videos. There has been a lot of research done around PTSD. So I have been working with some veterans, and imagine that some of the horrific things that they have seen and been involved with. Many of them have been to talk therapy, have done several other things, and they can't get rid of these traumas, these visions. So I tap with them, and within anywhere from 4 to 10 sessions, they have literally let go of that thing that's been haunting them for years sometimes. And it's just amazing to them. And still to me, that's something so traumatic that's keeping them up, giving them night terrors, not functioning in life, can dissolve within 4 to 10 sessions. So they've actually done a lot of research around that. And many of the research studies they've done with veterans, most of them, after they are seen 6 to 10 times, over 86% of them don't even have the PTSD symptoms anymore. So it's that powerful. It's not just for those big traumas, but it works for those big traumas. It works in everyday life for those things, those beliefs that you have. I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I'm not good with finances. I don't have enough time. I'm too old. It's too late for me to change careers. All of these beliefs that we carry, that's exactly what it is. It's just a belief. And all of those can be changed. And I have found with tapping, any single one of those can be changed. It also works around peak performance for sports. I've worked with a lot of people who maybe were injured during a sport and then they're afraid to get back in the game. They're worried about re-injuring, so we can tap around that. Or it could be they just want to maybe improve their golf swing, or improve their batting average. Whatever it is, tapping can help rewire the brain. That's what I always tell people. It's basically rewiring the brain. Whenever we tap on the points, which I'll show you in a moment here, on our face and upper body, it's sending a signal to the brain that you're safe and you're okay, and it's turning off that stress response. So you're thinking of the thing that's bothering you, but you're tapping at the same time. So we're almost tricking our brain. So our brain's like, wait a minute, I thought that caused me anxiety or stress or sadness. And then when we're tapping, the signal to the brain is, you're okay, you're safe. So with that mixed signal for the brain, it eventually rewires it to a point of you can let go of that trauma or change that belief. It absolutely relaxes your body. It's the number one thing I found with all of the different things I've experimented with over a decade that will reduce your cortisol level the fastest. The cortisol, remember, is that stress hormone that's released whenever we're stressed about anything. They've done several studies around that where they take the person's saliva, you can take the cortisol through that, or blood, and had them go through, either you tapped for an hour, you did talk therapy for an hour, and some people would just lay in a room for an hour. And they found that the EFT groups, cortisol dropped over 43% versus the talk therapy was 19%, and the other room, it basically didn't change. So it's a drastic drop in cortisol of anything else that I know. And that is that leading stress hormone. We need to figure out how to turn that off. So it basically, like I said, it's reprogramming your brain, and we're putting in a new pattern. We all have patterns. We've all created patterns around stress. We all stress about different things. That's why it's hard to really give a definition to stress, because what stresses me out might not stress you out. So whenever we're tapping and the cortisol is being released, it automatically shuts that off, turns off the stress response, and then puts you back in the present moment. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. Normally when we tap, I call it like Simon says, if I was working with you as an individual, or even as a group, if we were sitting here in front of each other, you'd all do what I do, and you'd all repeat what I say. So since I can't see you or hear you, you can see me. I want you to tap on the points that I'm tapping on. So do what I'm doing. You can choose to say what I'm saying out loud if you want, or you can just hear what I'm saying and move along to the points as I'm doing it. But I'm going to encourage all of you to tap along these points with me. And normally, again, like I said, if this was in a live group, I would be asking what the main stressors are. Is it around pain or work? But I can't do that. So I'm just going to do a basic one around stress and overwhelm, because that is kind of what the workshop was on. And we're all feeling that to some level with the COVID and the quarantine going on right now. So the first point is on the side of your hand. It's called the karate chop point. You're just tapping on the side of your hand like this. So that will be the first point. And I will be saying things in a minute. And like I said, you can repeat them or not. It doesn't matter. The next point is right where your eyebrows start. You can tap both sides if you want, or you can just tap one. It doesn't matter. I usually tap both. The next one is right where, on the side of your eye, kind of where your temples are. And then the top of your cheekbones, right under your nose, on your chin. And then feel where your collarbones are. It's right below your collarbones, and that soft tissue right below your collarbone. And then it's right under your arm. It's about 4 inches under your armpit. You're tapping along your side on your ribs. And the last one's on the top of your head. So I know now that you see it, you're like, you're right. It looks ridiculous, right? So again, I've done this over a decade on everything you can think of, from chronic pain to the PTSD to just letting go of beliefs, peak performance, and it works for all of those things. So we're going to try it. We're going to go through a tapping sequence. So you'll all start tapping on the side of your hand. I'm going to say some statements. Like I said, feel free if you want to repeat them. Otherwise, just follow along with me tapping. Even though I'm really stressed and overwhelmed, I honor these feelings and allow my body to relax. Even though I can feel the stress in my entire body, I honor these feelings and allow my body to feel safe and relax. All of this stress, I'm so overwhelmed. I feel like I have no control over it. It's all I can think about. I can feel it in my entire body. I constantly feel overwhelmed. And this quarantine has made it even worse. All of this uncertainty, all of the unknown, all of the stress. I'm really overwhelmed. I can feel it through my whole body. I feel like I have no control. I'm not sure how to let it go. I want to let it go. I want to feel calm and relaxed. I want to focus on something better. I want to find out how I can let this go. And to think more clearly. And to feel calm in my body. Maybe I could choose to let it go. Maybe it's that simple. Maybe it's safe to let it go. It's okay to let it go. I can focus on other things. Let go of the things I can't control. And allow my body to feel safe and calm. Feel relaxed. Feel focused. Letting go of the stress. And that was really short. I usually tell people, place your hands on your heart, take a breath. Kind of see how you feel in your body. It works better if you are tapping on a particular thing. Maybe for you, it's specifically the quarantine. Maybe you have a physical issue. Whatever it is for you, you wouldn't have to say all of these things like I did. That's the big misconception. People will say, well, I don't remember what you said or how I do it. All you need to do is whenever you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, or maybe you're someone who has chronic pain, while you're feeling that in your body's already triggered. The stress response has already happened. All you need to do is just sit and tap on those points that I showed you. Like I said, after this, there is a tapping chart that you can get, so you remember those points. Just sit and tap while those stories or thoughts or the anger, the anxiousness, whatever happened, plays through your head. And within a minute or two of doing that, you will realize that you're actually taking a breath, you're breathing more freely, you're thinking clear, and that thing probably won't even bother you anymore. It can move through your body that quickly. So it's just something that you could use throughout your day whenever you're feeling anxious. And I brought up the pain a few times. I work with a lot of people who deal with chronic pain. And my husband is one of them. He always gets pain in his lower back. That's where his emotions get stuck. And he'll wake up some mornings and say, there's no way I can go to work. I can't even move. And we'll start tapping. He's like, you're not going to be able to tap this out. So we'll start tapping. And first we'll tap about the pain and how he feels in his body and what the pain feels like. And then I'll ask him what kind of went on yesterday or what he'd been thinking about. And we'll start tapping about that. Maybe it's about his boss or something with his job. And as we tap and he's going through his emotions, the pain will just dissipate. It will go away. I've seen it time and time again where it's huge for chronic pain. I've used it for people who are going in for surgery, that have fear of surgery or the healing after it. So there's just so many ways you can use it. I go into schools all the time and use it for kids around testing and the bullying and anxiety they have at school. So I'm just going to encourage you to try it out. Use it every day. Just start trying to remember to tap. And one simple way you can do it for kids are like, well, I don't want to sit in class and tap on these points and have everyone looking at me. So you can actually tap. I don't know if you can see my hands good. It's right on the side of your hand by your nail bed, and you're just tapping your fingers. It's almost like a ladder. You're going up and down your fingers. So you go down to your pinky and then you just start coming up. You could have your hand in your lap. No one would know you're tapping if it's a child in school or before they had to give a speech or something, or if you were sitting in a boardroom or something and you're getting stressed or agitated by some of the people in the room, just start tapping your fingers and that will get your brain back on board and turn off that stress response. It's really that simple and that powerful. Again, like I said, there's endless things online. You can, I have a YouTube channel. All this information will be given to you guys on how to reach me, but I have hundreds. I gave you like 3 simple techniques and a really quick overview of tapping, but there's hundreds of videos on my YouTube. There's several different videos and articles and things around tapping on my website under Beth Tuttle. So please feel free to access any of these, and after down the road, if you have any questions on this or how it works or how it could apply to you, I would love for you to reach out. That basically wraps up. Like I said, it's a lot thrown at you in a short period of time. So I'll throw it back to you, Alex, and see if there's any questions.
Appears there's some issues with the link that was given there for the tapping. So I'm going to share one I think might work for everyone. And if not, let me know and I'll try to get a working link for everybody.
Okay, and you can also if not, I can try to send you another one to see if it'll work. But if they go to my website, bethtuttle.com, there's an actual free, you can subscribe. There's a free ebook it's a whole little book and layout. It's great on EFT, and the chart is also in there. You can opt in that way, or yeah, let me know if there's more problems. And again, the other thing I want to stress is you can't get it wrong. Some people say, oh, I forgot the head point, or I didn't tap on this point. Honestly, I have a couple clients that just like the collarbone point. And when they're stressed, they will just tap these points and let that story or the pain, whatever they're feeling, just play through and tap here. So you can't mess it up. You don't have to tap every point every time. You could just use your finger point. So there's many ways to do it, but you can't screw it up.
Okay, I did share both your website and possible. I'm not sure if that link worked for everybody there. I haven't got any feedback on it yet, but hopefully it did. And if not, like you said, going to your website, they'll be able to find it there.
Yep.
I do see Doug has his hand raised, but I haven't been able to get a question. Doug, do you have a question right now? No, he does not. So I think he just hand got raised earlier or something like that. But I do not have any questions at this time, other than
Okay.
some positive feedback from the tapping and breathing techniques. A few,
Yeah.
works great, and
Great.
positive
Yes.
feedback.
That's awesome. And I just, again, can't encourage you guys enough to, as weird as the tapping seems, to just start making it kind of part of your routine. And you will be shocked at how quickly you can just let go of things and you move through things. If you look into my website or whatever, like I said, please feel free to email me any questions. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer them. And again, if those 3 techniques you thought, oh, they were okay with the breathing and the triple warmer, I have hundreds on my website. You could find other simple acupressure points that you could use easily in your daily life, even teach your loved ones, your kids. So I'm just going to encourage you to do it. If you use it, it works. That's what I always tell people.
Perfect. No other questions at this time, and I cannot actually share your information here, so I'm just going to paste it in the chat for everybody. It's not letting me take over the screen, but for those looking for your content on YouTube and everything else, we put that in the chat window for those who are interested.
Okay. Yeah, and it's super simple. It's just my name. If you go to YouTube and type in Beth Tuttle, you'll find the videos easily. And my website is bethtuttle.com. And then my email, like Alex has up there, is work. It's kind of cut. Okay, there, it was cut off for a minute. Work with bethtuttle@gmail.com. So yeah, please feel free to reach out any of those ways. And thank you so much for taking the time. It's something that tools you'll have for a lifetime. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Beth, and thanks to everyone else for joining here today. We appreciate Beth coming out and talking about everything and in this stressful time. So everyone enjoy their day and have a great Friday.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. And I will be sending out a survey right after this call, and will include the 2 documents that Beth mentioned today. Thank you. Have a great weekend and happy Mother's Day.
Yes, to all you guys too. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.